Welcome back. In this section, I will show you how to serve the model we trained in the last section on your local machine. First, let's change our file editor to Pycharm, which is a fantastic tool to manage your model and all the Python file, including your Django project. Let's first go to Google and search for Pycharm. Download. Pycharm is a tool that is created by this company called JetBrains, and it has two versions. One is professional version, which has better support for HTML, JavaScript, and SQL. And for this project, you can just download the community version and install it. After you install it, which I already done, open it up, and if this is the first time you're using it, you have to import the project. So what I'll do here is show you how to import this project. Let's assuming it's the first time you're using it and there's no project that's being loaded into Pycharm yet. Click on Open button, and then here we can go to the project folder. And if you don't have the project folder set up, don't worry. I have included a GitHub repository where you can download and put into this folder and open up after you've done that. Let's open this project. If it's the first time you're opening this project, it might take some time for Pycharm to index all those files. Don't worry about it. And the first thing we need to do is to create a view function inside of modeling app. This is my project structure. If you followed all the previous steps, you will see a modeling, which is the app that we installed in last section. And you will see there's some built-in files, including views.py. So views.py is a file that contains all the functions that Django will use to serve your model. So just think about it as a list of functions that you can use, you can create there to answer any incoming API calls in the future. So let's quickly import some functions, and including the OS. And in here, because I just saved the file under this root directory of this app directory called model.file. In here, what I'm doing is letting Django know that this model file is under the current directory, and I'm appending the current directory path to this model file, so that regardless of where you're putting this directory, Django knows where to load the file. And in here, I'm using joblib to load the model file, which means I'm also need to import joblib, which I have done in here. So I'm cleaning up the folder a little bit so that will be a little cleaner. And then I'm creating a view function. So what this function does is it listens to any HTTP request. And in here we're assuming that there is gonna be a GET request. GET request is different than other HTTP requests comparing to POST request. So for simplicity in here, I'm just showing you how to use GET request. And if you're interested, you can subscribe to my full stack data scientist course, which in there I will show you how to create a POST request. But in here, the basic difference of POST and GET, you can consider that POST is more secure, and GET is everything that you send through a GET request is going to be shown on the URL. and it's going to be easier for us to show a GET request here. So, but keep that in mind that, for example, the password when you sign up to a website, those are coming through a POST request instead of GET request, because the website wants to handle your privacy much better and more security. So in here, I am trying to obtain a GET request, and the parameter from the GET request contains a parameter called review. Consider review is a GET argument, and I'm getting a review argument from the HTTP GET request. Then I'm using the model that I just loaded on line 10, and I'm calling this scikit-learn predict function to make a prediction, so that because the predict function is expecting an array of samples. That's why I am appended an array, a list of this review. I'm expecting a single review. So I have this review, I include it in the list, and then I'm using model.predict to make prediction on whether this is a positive or negative review. And the results will not be positive or negative. So for human readability, I'm converting 0 and 1 of the model results into whether it's positive or negative, so that it's easier for human to read. And if the model predicts the review to be a positive sentiment, then I'm gonna get a result of 1, which in this Python ternary expression, I'll get a result of positive. Otherwise, it's gonna be negative. And then and returning the result, but since this is going to be a HTTP request, the HTTP request is going to expect certain kind of response. So in here, I'm converting the results into a JSON object and return it and show it return it back to whoever made that request. And save here is I'm not going to go too much details about save in here. So it's basically a parameter that you need to set before you can send the request back to the requester. So after this, I have created this view function. Next step is to map this view function into URLs. So inside of modeling, let's create another file called urls.py. And in this urls.py, we need to configure the view function and map it to an API URL, so that in the future, when there's a request to this URL, then the view function will be activated to listen to that request. So basically, this is going to be your website /API/predict. If anything that hitting this URL, we will use the API sentiment predict function, which I define in the views.py. I'm loading this function into this URL, and then and use that function to handle any HTTP request. And after this url.py is configured, the next step we need is to include this URL into the project urls.py, so that by default, the app urls.py is not included in the project URLs. So we need to making sure the project is listening to this app's URL configuration file. So to do that, go to urls.py file under the sentiment analysis, which is related to project settings. So under there, let's include a utility called include. After that, let's just add this beneath this existing path, so that anything that goes to this website /model the URLs will be handled by modeling.urls. And after that, we're pretty much done. Let's go to your local project folder here, and then don't forget to activate the virtual environment, and let's run this server and see how it goes. Looks like it takes a few seconds for the server to load. That's because we are loading the model file. So you might notice that there's a few seconds delay. Depends on how fast your computer is. Let's go to this URL, and you might notice that because the root URL has not been configured, it's not pointing to anything, so it has page not found. Don't worry about that. And let's go back to the Python file. So in here, we're gonna expect anything that, because we're starting this modeling URLs with model. So let's go to model slash and then copy and paste this API URL, and then from there, what you can do is to add a parameter called review. Imagine that the way to do that is append a question mark at the end of this URL. Let's say I have just received a review and it's called "This movie is great." I want this to use this API to predict whether this sentiment is positive or negative. Let's hit enter, and now see that we get great results, which is positive. That is awesome. You can also try a few different samples. Like, I really don't like this movie, so for this one, I'm expecting to get a negative sentiment out of it. So let's do that. See again, you see negative. And then try something else. I'm doing the reviews. This movie is long and boring. And again, I'm getting negative results. So if you go to the command line that you can see here, there's it's going to tell you that there's a get request, and you notice that there's a URL encoding here, so that it is replacing a space with percentage sign 20, and that is how the URL is encoded on the browser. So don't worry about that. And so the local API server is set up successfully. Congratulations! And if you have followed this far, you should be able to see this server up and running, and you should be able to see that we received several GET requests. Feel free to try out something else. In here, I also wanted to share you, like, if you are familiar with Unix utility of curl, you can also use curl to send a GET request. Say that I'm passing, I'm sending a review parameters called "This movie is great," and I receive a positive response from the server. So feel free to try out several different examples, and once you're ready, let's go to the next session, and I'm going to teach you how to move this API server from your local host to Heroku, which is a productionized environment.